Nick, how about this? Give me the Carfax, okay? So Derek Carr said no to all trades, right? Which makes sense, right? He's talked a lot about wanting to be a free agent. What does it mean, though, for the New Orleans Saints that Derek Carr is going to be hitting the open market?
Well, I mean, look, I know they negotiated with him. They liked him. Carr liked the situation. The Saints like Carr. The money, I think, was a little bit of an issue. So they made him an offer. It was a pay cut from what he's currently making, and he said no to that, and he's going to test the market and kind of see what's out there. If he can't find a better offer, probably there's a chance that he comes back here, or there's a chance that the Saints could always up their offer as well. So it's not done by any means. Obviously, I think it's better if you really, really want him, if you can cut the line. But ultimately, if you end up getting him without sending a draft pick back to the Raiders, that is a big win for the team, because now you're not giving up money and the draft asset.
Yeah.
The scary side of this, though, and I think the thing that people don't understand about it is that there is a market of quarterbacks that goes from like $50 million to $35 million per year. And then once you fall below $35 million, you are at Jacoby Brissett, Baker Mayfield, in that class of quarterback. And Derek Carr isn't a savior by any means, but he is that class of quarterback that saves you from having a problem at the position. So I'm significantly for them acquiring him, just because otherwise Baker Mayfield's your starter next year probably, or someone of that caliber. And I think that when you get to that class, it's people that the league can pass over not once, but twice. And they've shown you they can't be a viable player as a starting quarterback. And if they miss on Carr, that's likely where they're going. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo's still out there. Maybe that's an option, but next year's probably looking a little bit bleak at that position if you don't figure something out here.
How much of an upgrade for you, Nick, is Derek Carr over an Andy Dalton? And when you have the Saints, maybe the only team that was willing to trade for Derek Carr, does that give you cause for concern?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, I think he is an upgrade over Andy Dalton. Look, I think if everything goes perfect around Derek Carr, like, you can get to the last game of the season. Everything would have to be perfect. It wouldn't be because of Carr, but everything loaded together, form behind him, kind of push him forward. Like, you can get there. I mean, we've seen it with Garoppolo's gotten there. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Stafford got there. Like, Jared Goff got there. I mean, those types of players in that $35 million range can get there. Sometimes they can win if everything's right. I think everything goes right behind Andy Dalton. You're maybe first round of the playoffs, maybe you steal one and then you lose. But I don't think you can get there. And I don't know. I mean, there is a legitimate conversation here. If you can show me how the next 5 years play out, if they don't acquire a quarterback, they do kind of bottom out, and you can see kind of how the cards fall. And yeah, maybe they do fall into place, but odds are we've seen a lot of times that they don't fall into place. And I think that's why you make this kind of move, because the alternative is very up in the air. And you might go 5 years and not have another opportunity to get a top, I don't know, what do we want to call him, a top 12, 13, 14 quarterback? You might not have that opportunity again. And so I think it's tough. I kind of look at it from a practical standpoint and look at it like, okay, well, if you can't figure it out, what do you do? And he's a better option than going through 5 years of bleakness and not finding an answer. But, you might not get there either. And your upside of gambling is probably higher. If you bought him out, maybe you do get lucky with the rookie quarterback. So those are the things you kind of have to consider a little bit. I kind of look at it like, okay, you put all this into Chris Olave. You got Trevor Penning. You have a pretty good young core of players. There's still decent pieces there.
Yeah.
Do you want to waste all that? I think you can get Carr and still continue your search. Look at the Chiefs. They had Alex Smith winning 12 games a year. They go get Mahomes. I mean, you can still approach it that same way. It doesn't mean that you have to be tied to this, but it's at least better than completely bottoming them out and maybe not finding an answer at all.
Nick, you don't have to belabor this point, but pure hypothetical here. Do you think, let's just place Derek Carr on this Saints team last year? You finished 7-10. Do you think he's 9-8 in that same setting?
I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, look, there were a handful of games where they fell apart in the fourth quarter, and Carr's led a decent amount of fourth quarter comebacks, game-winning drives. He's not perfect, again, by any means, but there were a handful of games last year. You go back, you watch the quarterback play late in the game. It looked like a backup quarterback in a pressure situation. And that's just kind of what it was. you saw Dalton get inaccurate against Cincinnati. Like there were plays there at the end of that game that they just didn't make them. There were a handful of games where there were plays there where they just didn't make the plays, and some of that was quarterback related. Some of it was, receiver related too. But I think if you just have one quarterback, you go through a whole offseason, he's your starter, it's your system, everybody blends around him. Like there's probably a little bit more synergy there by that point in the season too, just based off of that. And yeah, I do. I think that he's probably the difference between a win or two, and that's probably the difference between Carr and Andy Dalton. It's not elevated to, okay, Carr's on the team, that they're contenders now. Like, no, it's Carr's on the team, and if they do everything else right, they stay healthy, they get lucky, maybe they're contenders now. I mean, he's not a savior. Like, I want to keep saying that. Like, I'm not standing on a table for the guy or anything, but like, and he's not a savior, but like he is someone that I think makes your team better.
Well, it's like you may be standing on a table, but it's a table built off of necessity, right? Because as you said, like if you get past Derek Carr, then you are truly scraping the bottom of the barrel. Where is the money at? What did the Saints offer him? And when you look at the market and you think about teams that could be interested, right? Like certainly the Panthers. We talked about the Commanders, second note, maybe the Jets. Like, where did the Saints think that they could get Derek Carr to sign for?
So, I mean, I think he's at a range of like $38.6 million per year on the current contract, which will be terminated today. So probably somewhere in the lower 30s, I think they probably set the mark at. And
damn,
it kind of makes sense to put it there. I mean, at that point, you're kind of bidding against yourself. You're the only team trying to trade for him. And, the thing with the Saints, and look, we're going to see how this works out. And I would hate to see them lose him over a couple $1 million, especially with the way they move money around. It's not that limiting for, their cap purposes with how aggressive they are with it. But Mickey Loomis is a guy that kind of, he's a draw a line in the sand guy, and it kind of stays there. There isn't usually a lot of movement. They set their value and it works or it doesn't, and then they move on. There might be a little wiggle room here, just to kind of see what else is out there. But they're definitely taking a chance by setting the mark there and saying, hey, like, go out and see what's out there and let us know. Maybe he lets them know, maybe he doesn't, but I think there's still a chance. So, I mean, they were, again, the only team that was trying to trade for him. Being the only team that's trying to trade for him might be indicative of them being the only team willing to go that far on the contract. Like, they were kind of willing to take on the contract. So maybe they are the most aggressive team, but I don't know. Maybe someone else looks at it like, okay, we'll throw cash at him. We aren't giving up a pick. We'll do one, but not the other. And now the market gets a little bit hotter for him. But I still like their odds. I think they're still in this.
Nick, if you sign Derek Carr, does that change your draft strategy?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, I think. Right now I'd be trying to do everything I can to get a quarterback and maybe even move up to try to get one of these guys because you don't have anything else without them or, Jimmy Garoppolo or someone at that level. So if you get them, yeah, I think so. And I think it just changes the team philosophy as a whole. Like, I think you start looking at everything now and trying to be a little bit more competitive. They're trying to do like where they kind of walk both lines, where they're aggressive enough to win the NFC South because it's there for the taking, but also not being so aggressive that you're hindering your future cap or anything like that. So they're kind of like walking this line where the idea in the building is like, okay, we're going to clean this up, but we're still going to go for it a little bit. I think if you get Carr, maybe it tilts a little bit towards that other direction where, all right, we got all these pieces. The NFC's kind of bad. Carr might be like a top 4 cornerback or quarterback in the conference immediately. So I think if you get him, your philosophy kind of changes a little bit. You become more aggressive. And yeah, I think you prioritize maybe some stuff in the draft that helps you immediately as opposed to like, all right, we can take this quarterback and maybe he helps, 2 years down the road or whatever. So yeah, for sure. I think it definitely changes the philosophy overall with the whole team building.
Jake, you're grimacing on the top 4 in the NFC, but we went over that NFC list yesterday. It is shockingly bad how quickly the NFC quarterback list just became a joke. Like, especially if Aaron Rodgers is removed from it, there's just like nobody left, dude. It's Jalen Hurts and then everybody else.
Let's hear it. What's the list?
Give me
the
top 5.
I don't even remember doing that.
Well, no. Remember yesterday we were just kind of we were just kind of going down and looking and being like, oh my God, every single good quarterback is in the AFC right now. I mean, okay, so it's funny to your point, Nick. The second name that pops into my head is like Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff, right? So you're probably like Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff.
Yeah, Prescott that's in Dallas.
Okay, Dak Prescott. There we go. He could be top 4 as
Depending
well.
on what happens with Aaron Rodgers, obviously. So, I mean, there's a lot of question
is it
marks.
weird that – well, I'm saying let's just take Aaron out of this for now. But he would be number 1, obviously. But, like, Geno has worked his way in that list. Maybe Geno Smith, which, again, is a kind of inherent commentary on maybe where the level of NFC quarterback play is right now. So, yeah, man. Oh, yeah, Blaine Gabbert. Who could forget Blaine Gabbert?
Maybe Kyle Trask.
Yeah, maybe Kyle Trask.
It's the list of $35 to $40 million quarterbacks. Like that's
true.
That is insane to me.
That is true.
It is insane to me that's what those players are getting.
Explain the cap though, because Nick, what you constantly hear is Saints can't do this. Saints can't do this, and I know that you are at odds with a lot of times with the larger kind of Saints are $80 million over. How they're possibly going to do this? So, what are the actual cap economics and impact of signing Derek Carr to $37 million a year?
Yeah, look, I don't even think I'm like at odds with people. I just think that I think that when you cover the Saints, you're forced to learn how far the cap can stretch more so than other people. And I think other people just don't understand how far it can stretch because the teams they cover and talk about don't work the cap the way the Saints do. But this is actually low key like a way better situation for them if they get him this way instead of through the trade. Because if you're trading for him, you have to absorb the whole contract. If, nothing had happened to facilitate a trade beforehand, they could have done something to rework it. But, like, let's just say they trade for him straight up. You would have to take the whole 30 whatever million on the cap. And the Saints can only really clear about that much money. There's $60 million over, and then there's room to restructure to have about $35, $40 million in spending money. So if you're getting Carr, like, you got to save that space, and you really can't re-sign anybody because you have to have the cap space. Now, if they get him this way, you can set the contract up however you want. And I would bet they sign him now. League year starts in March. I bet they would sign him to something where there's a massive roster bonus instead of a signing bonus. Because then with the roster bonus, once you get on the other side of the league year, you could restructure that and spread it out. And then it hits your cap and you have all those prorated amounts. But doing it the other way, like you got to have the space. So this gives them the flexibility to go, okay, we can re-sign David Onyemata now. We can re-sign Caden Ellis now. We'll get them on the books. We'll get those contracts done. And we can also have Derek Carr if we want and set the contract up this way. And then on April 1st, we convert this roster bonus. He gets all his money anyhow and everything works out. So it actually does create more flexibility for them to be a little bit more aggressive with how they want to approach their free agents over the next few weeks.
There you go, Nick Underhill. I mean, look, man, you can ask him anything, and he has incredible, insightful, great answers. I love New Orleans on Football as a site. I'm a happy, proud subscriber. You should go check it out as well. Nick, thanks so much, man. You have a great day.
Yeah, take it easy, guys.
All right, take it easy, man. Nick Underhill at Nick_Underhill. Jake, get ready. It's happening. Give me the Carfax.
It is wild.
Give me the Carfax.
It is wild to me that amount of money is going to be for that kind of value in return, because you just had an opportunity, if you really wanted him, to throw your team's name into the trade discussions. And with so many teams with so many question marks in the NFC, as we just struggled to give you that list, only the Saints were in those conversations. That is a red flag for me.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair as far as red flags go, for sure. It is wild to me that the Saints sound like they offered low 30s. I thought it sounded like a low ball offer. I thought it would have been like high 20s. But it's also a sign of how confident Carr's side is feeling that they could turn down low 30s. They're feeling pretty good about his ability to get paid by someone. We'll see.
And Adam says you have Sam Darnold, Desmond Ridder, and Kyle Trask in the NFC South. How did the Saints not go for Carr in that pitiful division? Also, Taysom was very mismanaged. Like the Taysom part of it's a separate conversation, but we also don't know what the Panthers are going to do with Falcons. Maybe stay with Ridder. Although remember, he's like a third-round choice. Like they didn't spend a lot of draft capital on him. Yeah. So all three of those teams can go in a different direction. Kyle Trask was actually a second-round pick, but they can still easily go in a different direction. Maybe they can trade for a quarterback. One of these young guys, somebody in San Francisco has got to be traded. you would think. I mean, you have a player that has some value there. So
Yeah, Trey Lance is gone. Jeff Garcia's out here talking about how the
Maybe-
Niners got to stick with Brock Purdy.
maybe Justin Fields is available if the Bears decide they want to select a quarterback at 1. I don't know that that's even in their thought process, but it might be. So they can make some changes at quarterback too.
I would just love it if the entire NFC South started going after Derek Carr. There would be nothing more representative of what has been traditionally an awful division in football, or at least I guess if you look at like the teams' combined histories, right? Since the NFC South has not been together maybe the longest, but like Saints Falcons have always been awful. Carolina's not been particularly good, and Tampa, outside of a couple of random runs where they got it all together, they've been really bad as well.
They're back to being Tampa, like Cam Jordan said the other day.
What'd he say?
That they're back to being Tampa pretty much since Tom Brady's gone.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, Cam.